What's up, my YouTube crew? It's your boy, the Film Scout, back at you with another review. Today, we are here to break down the new movie, The Killer's Game. Let's get into it.
Killed my father.
Clock starts at midnight.
You're the client.
The Killer's Game is an action comedy directed by J.J. Perry and written by James Coyne. The movie is based on the 1997 novel of the same name written by Jay Bonazinga. Originally, the film was titled God Forsaken when Ran Ravitch wrote the version of The Killer's Game as a spec script in the mid-90s. He sold the original draft to New Line Cinema in December of 1995. Intermedia was set to produce the film during that time, and Rupert Wainwright was attached to direct. By July of 2022, Wesley Snipes was considered for the lead role, and production was supposed to start in fall of that year, but the plans fell through. A month later, director Mike Van Diem was being considered, and New Line Media began looking for other directors like Rennie Harlin, Alex Proros, Wolfgang Peterson, and John Woo. However, nothing materialized. In August of 2024, New Line Media passed the project to Paramount Pictures. Intermedia remained interested in producing, along with filmmaker Andrew Lazar, and Simon Kinberg was brought on to rewrite the script. Michael Keaton, known for his role in Beetlejuice, was considered for the lead. Directors Simon Crane and Pitoff were also considered, but once again the project collapsed, this time due to Intermedia going out of business. Jumping to December 2015, Broad Green Pictures looked to acquire the rights to the film. By February 2018, STX Films secured the rights, and DJ Caruso was set to direct the film, with Jason Statham attached to star. However, by April 2019, Statham exited the project and was replaced by Dave Bautista. Ice Cube, Marina Barcarine, and Chris Wu were also cast, with Caruso still on board as director. Caruso worked with Peter Landsman to rewrite the script, and production was scheduled to begin in the Dominican Republic in December 2019. However, production was stalled once again. In May of last year, the rights to the film transferred to STX to Lionsgate. DJ Caruso was tagged out and J.J. Perry was tagged in as director, and James Coyne was brought on to rewrite the script for the umpteenth time. The production team had obtained an interim agreement waiver to continue filming amidst the SAG-AFTRA strike. Fortunately, Dave Bautista and Ice Cube remained attached to the project, and Sophia Boutella, Ben Kingsley, Pam Clementif, Scott Atkins, Drew McIntyre, Marco Zorro were added to cast. However, in March of this year, Ice Cube was replaced by Terry Crews for his role. After all the delays, the writing credits went to Ran Ravitch, the original writer, and James Coyne, the final writer, with J.J. Perry as the director. The Killer's Game is truly the textbook definition of development hell. When I researched the film, I was shocked. The development of this film stretches all the way back to the mid-90s. The movie is almost as old as I am. I would have been no older than 2 years old in 1995 if this film had been released back then. The film faced countless hurdles, from the script rewrites to changing production companies to issues with distribution rights, casting changes, director swaps. Even when things seemed to be going smoothly towards the end, they had to obtain a permit to finish the film amidst the SAG-AFTRA strike and deal with last-minute casting replacements as late as March of this year. It's almost hard to keep up with everything, but here we are, the final project is in front of us. So the general premise of the movie is that a career assassin finds out he has a terminal medical diagnosis and decides he wants to go out with a bang by putting out a contract hit on himself. When his doctor tells him he made a mistake about his diagnosis, he tries to cancel the contract, but with no luck. Now he's got to fight for his life to stay alive against so many people who want to see him unalived. The movie stars Dave Bautista as Joe Flood, Sophia Boutella as Maze, Terry Crews as Lovedoll, Scott Atkins as Angus McKenzie, Marco Zorro as Butas, Palm Clementif as Mariana, Ben Kingsley as Ziv. Bautista as Joe Flood is an assassin with standards. Good man, wants to settle down and have a family, but his work makes him feel like he's unworthy of such a thing. Gee, I wonder why. Butella as Maisie is a ballerina who gets in the crosshairs of Joe Flood early on. She's a very sweet, very wholesome woman who only wants love. Cruz as Love Doll is probably one of the more domineering of all the assassins that went after Joe. His feelings were more overt than covert throughout his time on screen, even when it came to his non-fighting scenes. Atkins as Angus McKenzie is a headman that is a duo with Roy McKenzie, who was played by wrestler Drew McIntyre. The fight scenes they had towards the end with Joe were incredible. Zorro as Bautista is this sort of suave assassin that's very crisp and clean, put together guy, but looks definitely do kill. Clementif as Mariana is an assassin boss who is determined to get revenge on Joe Flood, but does she have as much authority within the assassin world as she presents to have? You will have to see. Kingsley as Ziv is a support character throughout the film that acts like a father figure to Joe Flood. You can tell he's a genuine friend. In the film, he is asked of something from Joe that he refuses to do. All in all, I believe the cast was assembled relatively well. This is another one of those movies I've seen this year that was visually put together well. The areas in which they shot in Budapest were really great scenes. Seeing the scenes they shot during at night were really incredible. They blew me away. I thought the music of the film matched the tone of the movie, which is always important if you're going to have a soundtrack in a film. Nothing seemed awkward or off-putting about the sound. I was happy that everyone sounded in sync for the most part. The pacing remained consistent throughout the film. The only real critique that I have regarding the pacing was that in some of the scenes or leading up to the fight scenes, the camera seemed to really speed up the space in such a way that just seemed unnecessary. It was like things were moving super fast even though the scene didn't call for it. It was like someone hit the fast forward button on the characters and just allowed the scene to sit still. The editing in the first act of the film was done super duper great. I love the seamless transitions between the scenes that Joe Flood had with Maisie and the ones Joe Flood had when he was handling his business with the people he was fighting. I really wish they would have kept that editing style in the second and third act. When it comes to action films, I try my best to give them a pass on the writing aspect of the film, in particular the dialogue. I don't necessarily believe that the dialogue in an action film is that important. The most important part is the action part, so as long as the writing for the fight scenes are good, the dialogue can be whatever it's going to be. With that being said, the fight scenes that were written were done excellently. Everything about those fight scenes were done relatively well. They kept my attention throughout the entire film in order to do that. The scenes have to be written well, so script writers, which there have been a lot for this movie in the past, wrote those scenes really well. This is technically the second movie I have seen from J.J. Perry, the first being the Blue Beetle movie that came out last year, but he was the second unit director for that project. This is the first film that I have seen from him as the primary director. I thought his direction was okay for the film. It wasn't anything that I was super impressed by. There were some awkward camera angles. I do kind of have to put the pacing of the movie on him since he ultimately has to approve of the movie's final cut. There was one scene in the movie that made me really, really dizzy looking at it, and I probably wasn't alone feeling that way. There were some really unnecessary camera angle shots that were really only made up for due to the fight scenes that happened throughout the movie. The fight scenes were directed great. More than a few of the non-fight scenes didn't land well for me due to the awkward camera angles and the pacing of a lot of those scenes that had the awkward camera angles. The Killer's Game is the first action comedy I've seen this year since Bad Boys Ride or Die back in June. Bad Boys Ride or Die is a better action comedy movie than The Killer's Game. But I know without a doubt the audience is going to make comparisons to the John Wick series due to the hitman and the contract killing characteristics of the film, which I think it really does suck for The Killer's Game, because The Killer's Game as a film was conceived all the way back in 1995. So had the movie came out around that time, those comparisons with John Wick probably would have been flipped in their favor as opposed to now. So was the film worth the wait? Should it have really taken 29 years for this movie to finally come into fruition? I don't believe so. While I'm happy that the film finally got made after all these years, based on what I saw, there is no reason why this movie shouldn't have came out in the 90s when it was first conceived. I really did appreciate the action of the movie. All the scenes looked really cool. I wasn't disappointed with any of the fight scenes. Some of the scenes made me feel like I wanted to get in there and help out. Unfortunately, you don't really get to laugh that much for this film, which is a big disappointment because it's an action comedy. And just like with my critique of Speak No Evil, as a psychological horror film, you can't have two genres for a film and only want to lean heavy on one of those genres and then completely ignore the second one, or don't truly lean into it until the third act. To me, this is unacceptable. I think that the movie would have been served better to an audience if the film lived up to the genres that they were representing. It had the action, it didn't have the comedy. Some of the scenes will make you laugh, but they were few and far in between. I believe that the film is worth a watch. I'm not so certain that I would be eager to see it a second time at the theater. I will wait for it to come out on one of the streaming platforms before I see it again. I love the fight scenes, like I said. I love the overall performances of the actors, but for me, I think the movie fell a little short. The Killer's Game is being released this week with Speak No Evil. Like I said in my previous post regarding my review of Speak No Evil, which if you haven't watched my review, you should go check it out. I think that Beetlejuice, which was released last week, may end up taking the box office again, although I do believe it will fight with Speak No Evil. As I said in my previous review, I was hoping that The Killer's Game would win the box office this week based on all the things that they've been going through, but I'm not so sure that will be the reality. For the plot, I give it a 7 out of 10. For characters and performances, I give it an 8 out of 10. For direction, 6 out of 10. For cinematography and visuals, 7 out of 10. For sound and music, 7 out of 10. For writing and dialogue, 7.5 out of 10. For pacing and editing, 7 out of 10. For themes and messages, I give it a 7 out of 10. For emotional impact, I give it a 6 out of 10. For overall enjoyment, I give it a 6 out of 10. Overall, I give The Killer's Game a 6.9 out of 10. This wraps up my review for The Killer's Game. Tell me what you think down in the comments. Do you agree or disagree with my review? Were you contemplating seeing the movie? Did my review help you change your mind? I look forward to reading all of your thoughts. Tell me, till next time, this is the Film Scout signing off. Peace.